Sticking your hand in the fire and getting burned and learning that fire is hot and it can hurt if you don't do it the right way is logically emotional. Knowing that you want to keep your hands warm, but the fire is the only way to do that, so you put your hands just close enough to get them warm so that you're comfortable without burning them, is emotionally logical. Welcome back to Along the Spiritual Journey. I phrase it this way because you meet both people. They exist in both worlds. We talk about the halves of the brain all the time, and this is one of those topics that are never going to go away because we as humans, this is part of our makeup and condition and our avatar to have the right thinking or the left thinking brain and the right thinking emotional brain. And so the thing about that is there's going to be people who approach the world differently. And I keep talking about it's always finding a way to meet back in the middle. Logically emotional people tend to get their confidence from facts. They love to read, they love to study, they love to know, they love to educate themselves as best as possible so that if any topic comes up that they are an expert in, they can speak on it with confidence because that's going to make them emotionally feel like they know what they're doing or what they know what they're talking about, right? Most people, if they have a lot of information and they're sharing it in a logical way, they're doing so because they enjoy sharing or they want people to learn or know or whatever. There's always some emotion attached to teaching, regardless if people understand that or not. How you retain information is how it makes you feel. It's a level of power as well as a level of sense. You know, it's a comfort to know that you have something sensible to rely on. And so when you have logic to base your emotions on, it's a double-edged sword, and both do, and I'm going to go down that. But for this one, when you only base it on the logical knowledge that's provided to you, and then as time does change, as well as things evolve, as we do, right? There were no cell phones, now there are. TikTok wasn't a thing, and now it's all over the world, and we use it as like a way to communicate, right? We have to adapt. And so, whatever knowledge we had before that, no matter how you felt about it, no matter how confident you were in that knowledge, you now have to go back, restudy, relearn, or what we call upgrade or update your information so that then you can go back to a place of feeling like you know. Be careful with this because, again, you're basing all of your confidence and logic and knowing and emotions on what someone else dictates to you. So, again, this is where you get people when we talk about rhetoric. If you are only focused on the words and not the emotional intent behind it, you're going to get lost in translation every time. Now, jump over to emotionally logical. This is all of my healers and people who feel first, feel it through first, get the vibes first, and then they make a decision. This was probably where I reside the most, but I understand both sides because for me, myself, I might come off logical only and detached to the world, but inside my world, in my head, in my emotions, I am very emotional and I'm always thinking about how it's going to make me feel, how it might make others feel. Even again, if my tone is not correct or I say it the way that other people want to hear it, it does take a toll on me. And I go in and I start thinking about how I can make sure that I'm being empathetic or that I'm making sure that I understand something, not just for the sake of, but because there's an emotion attached to it. Because again, there's a lot of things that we do logically, right? We go up the stairs, we use the stairs. If one person's coming down, we move over and you let them go down and you go up. That's a logical thing. But emotionally, let's say you see somebody running down carrying something and they look tired and they're trying to get down. You're going to move out of the way as much as possible because you can see emotionally they're tired, they're carrying something heavy. You don't want to make what they're doing more stressful. So you just move out of the way completely. That's the part where I say, yes, logically I can walk up the stairs, but like, what if there's no space? And now there's a confrontation because I'm trying to push my way past something where I could have used my emotions first to assess the situation and then make a logical decision from there. Again, everyone does this interchangeably, but for some reason, we just, as humans, pick a side and we either are all logical and then make our emotional basis on that, or we're all emotional and make our logical basis on that. Where in reality, we are both halves of the whole and we have to know how to use each interchangeably, but you can prefer one over the other. And so for me, I always tell people it's okay to not know. Just know how you feel about not knowing so that you don't start projecting onto others about something that they know or don't know. And then it starts making this weird confrontation of what's fact over what's being felt and experienced, right? So I always say it's better to say you don't know and go learn than to say you do know and try to prove a point. And then once the point is proven, even if you may be right about the data or information presented, there's a whole group of people that don't like you now just because you were so egotistical and hurting their emotions versus seeing where they were coming from. And the same thing on the other side. It's okay to feel all the feels, but if we get, here's the thing about being a feeler, we can get caught in a cause and then make that cause our identity, and then our identity is based on how people treat that cause versus how people just treat individuals around themselves and maybe that cause. And so this looks like, again, when people are very passionate about a topic, if someone doesn't agree with them, then all of a sudden they're ignorant, they're this, they're all these names because someone doesn't understand that most people have a reason for why they feel. May we agree with it or not, most people have a reason for why they feel the way they feel, which is attached to some history, which is why we talk about emotions and trauma and shadow work, because most of us are out there operating in a physical world that's based in logic, but it's all emotional moves. It's all things that we are feeling and deciding based on something that, again, could be so beneficial for you. But if you emotionally don't connect with it, you're not going to connect with it. Same thing logically. If you see something that makes so much logical sense, but your emotions are taking over so much that you can't see the logic, yeah, you're going to have to learn how to balance that energy. So, again, everything is about duality and polarity. And in that perspective of such, there is the whole that they represent, that they're both trying to help. So, for one side of you, it's trying to make you more logical so that you can see things, but have a practical outlook, which means make emotionally sound decisions. And the same thing with the other half. It is trying to emotionally make sure that you are tuned in and tapped into intuition and things when it's speaking to you so that you trust your body. But also remember, sometimes the body is remembering old past life memories, so it can trick you as well. So you have to have discernment and know, well, this is how I felt anytime I felt anxious about this thing. It's not really me upset about this topic or whatever. And you use discernment and you can walk out of that energy much easier. So understand that everything in this world is a dual aspect. It's about balance. Be a bridge keeper to yourself and how you interact with the world. When I meet people who are on my level, you usually vibe right away because we're both energy babies, right? We both are all emotional, and then we get to the logical stuff, and sometimes we don't match. And then there's people who are logical speakers, and it feels like I'm talking to a wall, but emotionally, they come back a couple of days later and they're like, I really resonated with what you said. I just had to think about it. And we end up being the best of friends. So again, it's yin yang, it's duality, it's polarity, it's all in one. Just remember that you are a part of the whole, so you have to understand each half and fractal part of self as well. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Love ya.